Hello, everybody, and welcome back to What's the Word? Today, I'm joined by Holly Paget. Thank you, Holly, for joining me today for this podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, kind of starting us out, would you be able to tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Holly Paget. Went to Embry Riddle started in 2015, graduated in 2019, Prescott campus. I majored in computer engineering with double minor in computer science and cybersecurity. I guess another cool fact is that I played for the women's soccer team as well while I was there. Since Embry Riddle, I moved out to Boise, Idaho. I work for a company called Micron Technology. Probably may not have heard of Micron yet, but people are starting to hear a lot more about Micron as it pertains to AI. So we're starting to get a bit more into the news with stuff like that because we make memory chips. So a lot of our big customers develop AI solutions and use our memory chips to do so. Within that, I'm not sure how much. I'll go really briefly into my job. I'm not sure how deep you want me to go, but I currently manage two pretty small teams at Micron that do effectively the same thing. They just stress test our memory chips. One stresses them in a wafer form and one stresses them in a packaged form. And the whole purpose of it is to stress test the memory in order to effectively accelerate its lifetime. And the purpose of doing something like that is so that we can guarantee to our customers that our memory chips will work for them based on the data sheet and all of the requirements that we tell them. So for example, we tell them, hey, it's going to last for you for 10 years in the field. My teams do part of that testing to ensure that we can confidently say that to our customers.
I guess that sounds pretty interesting. What does the kind of day-to-day look like, if you're able to tell a little bit about it?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Day to day is probably pretty standard for a lot of people in the industry, just depending on what you do. My teams are pretty software um, development heavy, and so most of my teams, as Micron gets a new memory chip that's coming through, we're the first ones, not the first ones, we're some of the first ones to see it. And so what they focus on is they effectively have to go in and set up a whole code base that includes all of our stress tests for that specific memory. And so they interface a lot with both the memory chip itself as well as the tester hardware that's able to ramp temperatures, change voltages, those types of things. So their code base is able to program all of that to happen all at one time. They work on that over time. They release that code. We run all the stresses across the memory, assuming everything looks good. There's some teams that give a bunch of checkoffs, and then hopefully at the end, then Micron can sell that memory chip.
Dang, that's pretty darn cool. I don't know too much about the field, so I'd like to
Mhm.
ask a quick clarifying question. Do
Yeah.
you do this for every chip that runs by, or is it like one of a new type and then that like confirms it for the rest of the same type and you're able to go and sell that?
No, it's actually a great question. So we run tests on every single new memory chip that comes through. So there's going to be testing done on absolutely everything. You kind of touched on an interesting point, though, that there are some scenarios where if something is similar enough, you can do something, maybe you could leverage data from previously. So I don't have to run 10 tests. Maybe this time I only have to run 8 because it's using the same type of technology for something. There's a lot of people that make all of those requirements to ensure that we're making sure that we cover our customers as best as possible, but we're also not wasting any time by doing something that's redundant. So yeah, you absolutely hit it there.
I gotcha. Thank you. Thank you. So how do you tie writing into your job? Is it like report writing or
Yeah, yeah, I would say everyone's a bit different. I would say I'll give you a couple examples and then I'll give you my overall philosophy because I have one in general. I think a lot when you talk about technical writing or writing in general, I care a lot more about the communication aspect of it. There's a quote that I've always loved, and I think some people attribute it to Einstein, but I don't actually know if it's his quote. Is basically if you can't explain something simply, then you don't understand it well enough, right? So the idea is you have to be able to in the industry take incredibly complex and technical topics but communicate it quickly, efficiently, and concisely. So a couple examples of things like that that get really important is I'll touch on my job first, and then I'll touch on some things that other people do. But for the most part, mine is communication of something. We have something called an OSER. It stands for Objective Status Issues and Recommendations. And a lot of what that is can I make you a one-slide PowerPoint, so just one single slide that gets across everything you need to know about a project, its status, any issues with it, et cetera. And something like that is incredibly important to be good at because when people are getting to higher and higher up levels, well, a vice president can't know every single project that's going on. But if you need to explain something to him, you're like, hey, here's the slides of the things that are going on. Your ideas have to get across, not even necessarily where you can verbally explain them, where just what you've written speaks for itself. So that's incredibly important as far as technical writing. Kind of classic technical writing that would match up more so with what you would do in school is there's a lot of technical forms. So in a company like Micron, it's incredibly intellectual property heavy. There's a ton of patents being created, written, all those types of things. And so a lot of what happens, and I know this happens at other companies as well, is we have entire forums where people submit their technical papers to the forum. They're either published internally or externally. Sometimes people give presentations on them, and it can be a new innovation. And some people would say, oh, that's a new memory technology that they came up with. And maybe it leads to a patent and all this other kind of stuff. Can also be testing methodology. So if my team comes up with something new that speeds up our testing or does better testing or catches more defects or, fill in the blank there, they also go write exactly what you would think of as a technical paper that goes through and explains, here's the objective, here's the abstract, here's the details of what was done, here's the conclusions, here's what's coming next. And it looks entirely like you would see in school. So the people that are super into that innovative type of side do a ton of that work, right? And so anytime my team does something like that, then it gets pushed towards, hey, go write this paper about it, submit it to this forum. And sometimes those things go towards presentations, they get published, those types of things. So I'd say there's definitely a lot of technical communication, which is maybe not as much as what you see in school, but there's also just true papers that get written in any company that does anything innovative. They're going to write a paper about it so they can explain their ideas.
Yeah, that actually does sound very similar to a lot of stuff I'm witnessing right now. Have you noticed some similarities, differences to your experience of writing at Embry Riddle and the different styles and formats and just writing in general to now what you're doing right now?
Yeah, I think it's kind of the difference between academics and industry. I would say in general, it's the same thing as the difference with writing in academics or in industry. I think it's my dad that's always told me that you actually go to school to learn how to learn is actually the most important thing. So when you talk, especially talking about those technical papers that get written, honestly, very similar to like the technical writing course that I took at Embry Riddle. The formats are very similar. The way that you're doing those things are very similar. The idea of technical writing, in my mind, really sticks towards you're not putting a bunch of fluff in there. You're getting the details and you're getting your ideas across, and you're not trying to make it beautiful and flowy and have all these adjectives. Like you're just trying to get your point across. I think that holds true no matter what. I think the format just changes a little bit. For example, hey, I got to be even more concise. Maybe a professor wants to see everything I've done, and maybe the vice president says, I just want to know what is it doing? Does it work? And what's the problem? So I'd say kind of like the amount that you're doing is a bit different. On a day-to-day basis, I'm not writing a ton of technical papers. But how do you respond to an email when someone's asking you for a technical topic, right? Having those baseline fundamentals that come from something like a technical writing course, it all applies. And if you have learned how to learn, you pick up how your company does it because every company does it slightly differently. And the engineers that are really good, in my opinion, communicate really well. And those are the people that tend to stand out. Even with hiring, those types of things. I mean, people that can communicate their ideas get their ideas done. People that can't communicate their ideas, it doesn't matter how brilliant you are. I work with some very, very, very smart people. The ones that can communicate their ideas better get more of their ideas done.
So looking back at your time at Embry Riddle, what do you wish you would have known before leaving Riddle and transitioning into the workplace?
Maybe this sounds simple, but I see it a lot with myself as well as the new college grads that we get in is engineering, there's not in the industry, there's not a known answer. In school, there's an answer. So when a professor gives you a coding project, right, they know how to get to a solution. Now, maybe there's 5 ways to get there, but they know that it works. They know that there's a solution and they have a general ability to guide you to that solution. Sometimes it's kind of hard for everyone that's new as you show up and you go, oh, wait, they're giving me a problem and they're giving me that problem because no one solved it before. That's very different. It's a very different idea of there's not a known solution, you have to go find it. That's why you're paid as an engineer. And so I think, again, that learning how to learn is the most important part. It's not even necessarily all those little teeny tiny details, all those little formulas and those things. I don't remember them, but I know if I went and looked them back up, I could do it. And that's what I learned at Embry Riddle. And very much going into industry, you're going to run into a lot of problems that no one's solved. And that's both the cool thing and the scary thing. But being able to say, okay, but I can do it. I can figure it out. There's very few problems that can't be figured out, but you have to find that confidence in yourself that you're going to, because industry doesn't have a professor in lab hours that you can show up, and no matter how frustrated you are, they're going to have an answer for you, and you're going to go, oh, I just needed to do this. Doesn't happen as nicely when you go into the industry.
Yeah, there's no back of the textbook type thing.
Yeah.
Or check.
Exactly. Yeah.
As we kind of wrap up our interviews, we always like to ask one last question. If you were to go back and tell freshman you, or even like coming into college for the first time, what advice would you give yourself?
I'd probably say keep asking questions. There's something I was always embarrassed about, was how many questions I would ask. Worried that someone would think it's a dumb question, or someone would say, well, why didn't you already know that? And it's definitely getting out of your own head and just asking questions, I think, is the big thing, because that's, if you know how you learn, and I learn very much by people teaching me. For me, I had to ask questions and not be embarrassed about asking questions. So that would be probably number one. Number two, for sure, at Embry Riddle, the thing that was so important to me, especially playing soccer, I missed a ton of classes, was going and approaching my professors ahead of time. Going into their offices, those times that they give you that they're there to answer questions, going to talk to them, going to ask those questions, because they are there to help you. And I think it's something that Embry Riddle does, honestly, a bit better than a lot of universities, is you get access to your professors and your TAs a lot more than you do at other universities. And you have to use that, because it's the only way I got through, was definitely walking into their offices and saying, can you help me? I don't get it. And being willing to say, I don't get it, was super, super helpful to me, was finding that confidence. So I'd say definitely doing that from the start and not waiting until you're really behind.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the advice, Holly. And well, thank you so much for joining me on What's the Word?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This podcast is supported by the Department of Humanities and Communication at Embry Riddle Aeronautical University in Prescott, Arizona. Our hosts and producers are Owen Smith and Leah Little. I'm Amelia Chesley, Assistant Professor of Professional Writing. Many thanks to the Prescott Campus Writing and Design Lab for hosting our transcripts. The intro and outro music is Wanderer by Alex. You can find us where most podcasts are found. And if you are a Prescott Campus alum, please reach out so we can feature you in a future episode.